Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our November webinar series all about supporting students in career exploration. As you may know, the Kentucky Department of Education has a new partnership with the College Board to administer the SAT as part of the state's assessment system for high school juniors starting in the spring of 2026. This decision means that Kentucky will administer the SAT during the school day at no cost to students, and it will provide students with the digital format of the SAT. What you might not know is that the College Board also offers a lot of additional personalized tools that are really helpful to students in other ways, such as Big Future School, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And this is a platform that helps students to identify and explore careers of interest. I am thrilled today to be joined by three amazing colleagues from the College Board who I will welcome into the Zoom room now. We have Mark Yoho, who is the K-12 Director of State and District Partnerships. He served as a public educator for 14 years prior to joining the College Board, and he's been with them for 9 years, supporting schools and districts and state agencies with all of the College Board's programs. He is passionate to support educators and students to meet their goals and supports all schools across Kentucky. We'll be sharing Mark's contact information a little bit later on, but he welcomes your interaction with him. Feel free to reach out at any time if there's anything that he can do to support your work. We're also joined today by Ashley Gibson, who serves as the Senior Director of Institutional Assessment Management in the College Board's College Readiness Assessment Division. Ashley can tell you a little bit more about her role as we move through the presentation today, but she does support programmatic deliverables, and she supports all of the statewide contract partners, both K-12 and post-secondary. This is her second tour of the College Board, where she previously worked as a member of the government relations team. Ashley lives in Indianapolis, Indiana, so she's pretty close to us, and she enjoys concerts and tennis and volunteering. Now, although she's not visible at the moment, we're also thrilled to have Elizabeth McKenzie with us today. She is the Senior Educational Manager for the College Board, and she serves several states in our region. So, Liz, we really appreciate you working through some scheduling challenges today to join us this morning. So at this time, I'd like to invite Mark and anybody else from the College Board team who'd like to chime in to give us a little introduction to Kentucky's new partnership with the College Board. So Mark, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Robin. So as Robin stated, bring up my deck here, please. Still says the explanation was a hoax. It's really a private for the Democrats for students. Robin, do you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So just to restate what Robin said, College Board is so excited that Kentucky chose the SAT as the state-sponsored administration for juniors going forward. So all public school students in Kentucky in 11th grade will have the opportunity to take the SAT for free in school early March through mid-April. So that's a 6-week window that they have to administer the exam to all students. So as you might imagine, Kentucky's had a contract with ACT for 18 years. So this has changed. This is new. This is exciting, but there's a lot of work to do to get folks ready to be prepared to offer this opportunity to all students. So just to let you know what College Board's doing to support schools across Kentucky. We're on the roadshow right now. I'm in London, Kentucky as we speak. We're doing 7 in-person trainings in Kentucky just in November as an introduction to let folks know what's all entailed with this. And it's a half-day training. We're doing 5 more in February, closer to test administration to make sure folks are ready. We're co-hosting monthly office hours with KDE. We have 5 webinars and recordings. So this is all to say, Kentucky is thrilled with College Board's level of support. To this point, educators have been overwhelmingly positive. The feedback from our workshops are going great. So we're just really excited about this opportunity and how things are kicking off so far. So I'd like to throw it to Elizabeth McKenzie if you'd like to provide an overview more on the higher ed side of things on what's shaking in Kentucky.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am so sorry I'm not on camera. I have a new laptop and the camera works sometimes it does not. So, anyway, I work with colleges and universities in Kentucky. I've been at the College Board over 20 years, and your trivia is that I started my admissions career at the University of Kentucky, so I know the Commonwealth quite well. Um, but we are doing lots of things, just as Mark is for K-12 on the higher ed side. There were six of us at CACRO. So if any of you in higher ed were at the CACRO conference, on Thursday and Friday, we had a whole team there. We did a presentation. Um, we had a colleague who was with Robin and her team yesterday at another conference, and I'm heading to Frankfurt this afternoon for the Commonwealth Education Continuum meeting where a colleague and I will be doing a presentation. But very specific for you all here in higher ed, we have a webinar on December the 11th, and I'm going to get that link and have Robin post it for you all, and she can share it as far as follow-up. We also are planning at the minimum three sort of, I'll call them micro specific webinars in the new year for higher ed. That information will go out before the winter holidays in terms of registering and what those events will be. We are planning to submit a session proposal and plan to be at Kentucky ACAC. So for any of you here who travel to that conference, I know there will be other things that happen, but that's sort of what we know right now on our calendar. But we are also very, very excited on the higher ed side. We also know it's a very big deal for colleges and universities for this change. Anyway, we're here for you, and we look forward to partnering with you. So, Mark, I'll toss it back to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Great updates there. So there we go. So just to set a little context, today, we're going to talk about College Board's Big Future Schools app and an opportunity within the Big Future Schools app that students can decide if they'd like to. The focus on today is going to be on the career aspect of what students have available to them within Big Future. But there is a college and scholarship component to it that we'll touch on as an awareness, but we're really going to try to stay focused on the career aspect of things. So this slide is just depicting a little bit on where College Board is at with what information they're providing on the career aspect for students and kind of what the vision is going forward and trying to build out. So two things to kind of show that here is when students were polled by College Board in a firm and asked how important are each of the following in motivating you most to explore possible career paths in high school. And what was most important to them is the ability to achieve their future goals. Probably shouldn't be a surprise, but that's very important to students. 82% scored that the highest. It's very important to students, of course, that they be able to achieve their career goals. And then from a skills component, 87% of employers, this is from McKinsey, have said that they expect to have significant skill gaps within a few years of their students. So I think when you look at some of the information that we're providing to students now based on their scores, we're focusing more on career ready aspects and we're focusing more on skills than just reporting out a reading and writing and a math score. So that's sort of a change and is going to continue to be the focus of College Board going forward. So it's not just scores in isolation, it's scores going to students to provide information that can help inform their future. So the first thing is, and all students will have access to this on, I'm putting this in quotes if you're just listening, but paper score reports, because many of our students will be accessing their scores online. That's one reason why students sign up for Big Future is they will get, if they choose, they will get pinged when their scores are ready on their phone. And so they don't have to wait for, their school counselor or somebody else to tell them that their scores are ready. So that's one thing. So we know that it can be a daunting process for students to uncover what they might want to do after graduation. And that's what a lot of these tools are intended to help them through, whether they want to go to a 2-year or 4-year, whether they want to go directly to career, whatever that takes place, we want to be helping students find their path. So the career aspects that I'll show you here in a second on what all students get on their score report contains a snapshot of in-demand jobs with local to Kentucky information, so within the state, that meet these certain criteria, that they're fast growing in Kentucky. They reflect career interests across many different areas. So it's not just like a very specific job. Those skills transcend different kind of industries, if you will. And they require some form of education after high school, and it pays a living wage. So those are the parameters of the career insights that they will get. And it looks like this here. So you can see on the side, we'll talk more about this. There's called a RIASEC model, which is basically like career skills, if you will. And so they have that on the side. We can go through these later, but it's like doers, creators, helpers, organizers. So it's doing it a kind of a broad swath, trying to help students identify which kind of skills like that may be a home run for them. Like I'm a helper. I think a lot of helpers get into the education space. And so it just helps them identify some things about themselves. And then again, it's going to list those 6 careers. And these are careers that we have partnered with ONET and other organizations to align student scores on the SAT and what those skills are in various careers. So it's saying, hey, based on your scores, these 6 careers might be a good fit for you. Have you considered these? And then they can investigate them further. So we've got their interest area, we've got their career example, and then it's going to give median yearly income in Kentucky. Good to know, right? So we don't want students solely focusing on, the salary amount, but of course that's informative. We would all want to know that. The number of jobs available in Kentucky. So it's giving them the context of, if I'm looking at fashion designers here in this fictitious example, there's 300. And if I look at financial managers, there's 23,000. So it's putting in context, how many jobs are we talking about? Gives you a job growth percentage in Kentucky. So, you look at, again, fictitious example, geothermal production manager growing at 3% versus fashion designers growing at 19%. So how many jobs, how quickly are they growing? And then the most common education level. Many jobs have different, levels of attainment that you might, that might be required. But what's the most common level for an entry position? So is that an associate, a bachelor's, a master's, to give them an idea of how much, formal schooling might be entailed. So all students get that on their score report. So hopefully this piques interest and they're like, oh, let me go learn more. Let me see, maybe I don't want to be a logistics engineer. Maybe I want to be a mechanical engineer. Let me go find out more information about that. But an option that students have, and again, I'm using the word option, this is optional, they would opt in when they're taking an in-school PSAT or SAT, they will be asked, do you want to provide your phone number to opt in to Big Future Schools? If they choose to do that, they'll receive a text that enables them to download the Big Future School app. So this is totally optional, but that is something that they can do. Something to be aware of if you happen to ever be talking with students about this is you cannot opt in at any other time than when you're taking that exam in school. So I've gotten contacted by, parents that I work with in schools and districts and say, hey, my student didn't know what they were doing. They didn't give their phone number. I absolutely want them to have this. How do I do that? And I have to say, I'm very sorry, but the only time that you can opt in right now is on test day by providing your phone number. So we recommend that students be told why they're asking that question and what Big Future Schools app can provide them prior to test day so that they know the decision that they're making and understand that this is their kind of one-shot deal enjoying. So what can students do on Big Future School? So the first thing I referenced is they'll get pinged immediately when their scores are ready. So that's kind of the lowest level. A lot of students like that, so they're not required, waiting on somebody else to tell them scores are ready to go check. They get notified immediately. So that's one thing. The college and career guidance we can talk about, but something like we just looked at, those 6 recommended areas with that local information for Kentucky is, kind of one easy thing. The college going part, students opt into connections. They can start a 2-way communication with colleges and universities. So colleges and universities have aspects, of course, of students, the type of student that they're looking for. They can reach out to the student and they might see, hey, Eastern Kentucky is reaching out. They're looking for a student like you. Do you want to communicate with Eastern Kentucky? And the way that we think of it is a student can raise their hand and say like, yeah, I want to be seen by Eastern Kentucky. I want to share my student information for that with them. So from a data privacy standpoint, College Board sees this as very data privacy forward because every time a student shares their personal information, they're opting into doing so. They are in control of when they share their private information and with whom they share their private information every single time. And so that is very data privacy forward, we believe, and that students are very much in control of their personal information. There's interactive tools and quizzes that we'll talk about today, because in that first example of those 6 suggested careers, those were suggested to the student, right, based on their scores. We also have more student-driven options for students versus here's 6 ideas for you, and they can go in and explore on their own. And then I was talking about the post-secondary connections, and that's when they can start that communication with colleges, universities, and scholarship entities. Robin, I think I saw a hand. Do you want me to stop or just keep rolling?
Yeah, there were a couple of questions. I think Liz is answering some of them, but you might
Okay.
want to address them, for everybody. So the first question came from Lori Beth Wilson and asked, is Big Future available for 9 through 12 or only after they're signed up for the SAT?
Great question. Thanks for the question. It is available now, even down to the PSAT 8-9. So it is available for any student taking what we call an SAT suite, which is any of the PSAT 8-9, PSAT and MSUT, SAT, PSAT 10. So any of those assessments they're taking in school, students can opt in.
Okay.
Good
And
question.
then a second question was about, is this a free service or do schools have to purchase it?
So on the K-12 side of things, and for the student, this is all free.
Okay. So keep those
Anything else,
questions. No, that's it for right now.
Okay, all right,
And
great questions.
Mark,
Thanks.
can I just say, since you're multitasking, I answered the question about Big Future website and provided the link to the website in the Q&A. So the way the question was, I wasn't quite sure which direction we were going. So you and I covered it all. So
Look at us. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, so just to give you an idea of how many students are participating in this, this is in the 24-25 school year. Nearly 4.8 million students chose to opt in, which is a huge number. We're super excited. You can see, if you're able to see the screen here, the app ratings have been great. So students are having a good experience, which we're stoked about. 95% of students onboarded checked their scores in the app. Again, that's one of the main drivers of why students are using it is to get their scores. And so again, 95% of students that downloaded their app, that's how they got their scores. And then of the 4.8 million students who downloaded the app, 3.6 million have joined connections to start that two-way communication. They want to be seen, they want to be recruited, they want scholarship entities to see them and reach out to them. And we think that makes good sense that they would want to do so. So we're excited about that. So what does the process look like? So starting on the left here, that's just their basic score report, right? That's like, hey, the start of this is if students want to know, how'd I do, right? What are my scores? And so they can kind of start there. And then for the Career Insights snapshot, on the app, it sort of looks like that screen I showed you from the paper score report. It's going to say, hey, based on your scores and the criteria that we discussed, in-demand jobs, growing jobs, living wage jobs, requires some sort of a post-high school education opportunity. Based on those criteria, here are these careers that we think you should consider. Then they can see that further information. They can save it to a list if they want to, so they can refer back to a career list that they might be interested in. And then on the right, we'll talk about another option called Career Explorer, which is way more student driven. So again, that first aspect is kind of be given to them. Have you considered these based on your scores? And then we have other options that are going to be more student driven based off of their personal interests and self-perceived strengths. Okay. So one way that students can explore on their own, and I'll show you some of this through a product tour that we have, is a career quiz. Kind of a cool option for students here. We say it will take about 15 minutes, and it's almost like, it's the only one I know of, so I want to say, but I think It's an app that people can swipe left and right on certain aspects that they're interested in. So it's sort of like that, where they get exposed to a career and they rate it based on how interested they are in that career. And so they'll say, I'm very interested, I'm not very interested, I don't know, I'm not interested. And so it'll run them through those 30 different careers. And it's sort of like when you watch Netflix and then they make recommendations based on what you've watched. It's building a career list off of interests that the students are responding to. I am interested in this, I'm not interested in that. So that's another way for them to sort of build a career interest for themselves. And they can continue past those 30 to further kind of like give the system more data to narrow down. But they can kind of keep going to build a list off of their interests. And then Career Explorer is just, they can mess around on their own. And you can see sort of on the right here, if you can see that screen of interest areas, these are kind of what I was referring to at the beginning. I guess it's called the RIASEC model, where you can see there's thinkers, helpers, creators, persuaders, doers, and organizers. And for those different careers, the length in the bar means basically like, we think this career is really strong for thinkers, but it's not really artistic. And so you might not see, a long bar on that particular part. So if the student, back to myself, thinks they're really a helper, you might be a great fit to be a teacher, and you might be, less great fit for somebody who interacts with people less, perhaps. All right, so the product tour, and this is on YouTube if anybody wants to go and do this at a later time. Okay, Robin, do you see a different screen for me now outside of my,
Yes.
okay. So we're gonna start looking at the career insights and quiz. And this kind of walks you through like, what does this actually look like when students get in? And so let me go back a couple steps. Default to step 3. Okay, so when a student's in their Big Future School app, this is again kind of like the tile of what it looks like for a particular career recommendation. So they can come in, and if they go at the bottom and they go down to scores, so for example, like let's say the video game designer was one that they recommended to the student. So they're just going to see a screen with that. You're going to see that top skill, that creator right there is that top RIASEC skill that we were talking about. So obviously they're saying the top skill for a video game designer in their research and opinion is creating, and it has that salary. So if they were to click on that tile, it's going to give them that further information like we saw on the paper score report. And again, this is saying Colorado students would see Kentucky. How many jobs? What's the growth? Required education level, average salary. So helpful information to see, do I want to explore further and see what do these jobs entail, and further information that we provide them. So, and then like we were talking about earlier, we have the self-directed student quiz. So if they were to go into that career quiz we were talking about, it gives some information about our partnership with ONET to identify the score correlation with the skills. They would hit continue. And this is that rating system that I was talking about. So it's going to go through 30 careers, give some information. They can go anywhere from strongly dislike to strongly like to unsure, so that it doesn't really count in their rating. And it's going to build that profile for them to give them suggested careers in that student-directed way, not just based on their scores. So there's 60 questions that they'll go through. It's going to give them a profile when they get done. I'm going through rating all those different careers and saying like, hey, we think these are your interest areas based on how you responded to those careers. So that can be helpful information in and of itself, I think. Sort of like one of those kind of like personality or strengths finder types of quizzes. I think that's kind of neat. And it'll give them more information if they want to. Hey, they said I'm a thinker. Like, let me go in and find, what does that mean? Like, what types of skills is that? What does that mean in types of career clusters that might be a good fit for them? And then here's their career quiz matches. So it's going to give them 30. So here's 30 careers maybe that we think matches with how you responded in interest to all those various career spaces. Okay, so that is the career insights and quiz part. The Career Explorer is just totally self-directed. So this is where students can go through, see all careers, mosey around, go to similar careers, all those types of things. So there's been three options. One is the 6 careers that are given to students based on their scores. There was the career quiz where students go through and kind of rate careers they might be interested in. And then the Career Explorers where they can go and just look at everything on their own without those first two things. So they would click on Career Explorer. Get started. And then they're going to see a set of careers that they want, that they can choose. They can view their interests if they'd like to. And then it's going to look pretty similar to what we were looking at before, where, hey, you gave this many likes, this type of career cluster, and here are some occupations that you might like within that career cluster. And then you go in and find more information. Just another view of how they can go in and look more into those REASEC skills that they might be interested in, their interest area. And then it can zoom out a little bit to look at career clusters. And so maybe video game designer might be in this top category, arts, video technology, and communications. So they can zoom out a little bit and see that whole cluster and say, maybe I don't want to be a video game designer, but I'm interested in this cluster, if you will. So what are some other things besides video game designer that I might be interested in to learn more about? Okay, similar kind of thing. That's just the expanded view of explaining what the interest area is. Then if they want, they can continue to go in and read. So that's a little tour of what students can see and do within Big Future. And let me get back to okay. And so that's kind of my portion of it. I'd like to offer Elizabeth an opportunity to maybe provide some higher ed context, if you don't mind, please, around Big Future School app and connections. Elizabeth?
Yes, and there is a
Thank you.
question in the chat, thanks, Mark, that
Mhm.
I'm going to address sort of broadly as well, and I'll try to answer it in the chat as well. Colleges, we have, because of privacy rules in Kentucky and most other states in the US, we have come up with a privacy forward way for colleges to reach out to students after they take the PSAT or the SAT for a school day assessment. So, to use admissions lingo for those of you in admissions here, top of the funnel. And this is starting our third cycle. On the higher ed side, it is called Connections. It is the higher ed side of what Mark was talking about with Big Future School in terms of how students learn about colleges. And so we have colleges participate via College Board Search. There are subscription packages which include both licensing individual names, perhaps from AP, perhaps because a student opted in from our website, or a weekend SAT. But search allows you to send Mark or Ashley an email or a postcard or something in the mail with more detailed information. Connections is within the app, and you can narrow your communications in different ways. So if you wanted to say something different to kids in Kentucky versus kids in Iowa, for instance, you can do that. Our team can work with you on that. So there is a cost, but there are some pretty small opt-in levels of how colleges can opt in. But I believe we are also allowing, we are not just allowing, we on our end are bringing other colleges just sort of from our Big Future website, just sort of general information into the app as well for students when they're going through and looking at their scores. But for colleges who who have a subscription plan, they are able to offer a form for students to fill out. So Robin, the student, can input her information. It's pretty basic info, but that then that's the student proactively sharing their contact information on the college's website. So College Board is not collecting that to share with the college. And the college can then follow up directly with the student. That may all sound very confusing, and I apologize if it does. I'm going to put my email address in the Q&A. It's also in the chat. If you've got questions, if you're like, I want to learn more on the higher ed side, you can do a couple of things. You can email me and I will put you in touch with the team that does all of that work. But I'm also going to put in both locations a link to a webinar that we are hosting on December the 11th, where you can learn more there. And I forgot to mention at the top, we've created a website just for Kentucky higher ed, where there's also a link to get you to the Search and Connections team as well. So there's a lot of ways you can find us, and I'll put them both in the chat and in the Q&A. So that was a lot of info, but if you've got follow-up questions, put them in the chat and we will answer them for you.
And Liz, I did put your higher ed link in there in the chat for everyone. So that link should already be available.
Fantastic.
Okay. Well, thank you all for all this information. I was going to say, Ashley, you haven't said much. Is there anything you want to add to what has been said or the conversation so far?
No, not a whole lot. My colleagues did a wonderful job of covering it, but just reiterating what Robin touched on at the beginning is that I do support all of our statewide contract work. So not just Kentucky, but thrilled to have Kentucky as a new partner and starting work in the state. So we have done a lot of work in statewide contract aspects. So we've learned some lessons from there. We'll learn some lessons from Kentucky. We're always open to your feedback and suggestions as we continue down the path of partnership. So I will also put my email in the chat just so it's one more College Board person for folks to get in touch with. But we're always happy to help and to have additional conversations and presentations as needed.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Well, I want to start just kind of our follow-up conversation or our summary here at the end by saying, Mark, thank you for the great presentation. I really loved how you started with the poll of students. Like, what are they saying about what they what they care about and what they want? I wondered if there was anything else that you could add about your, just your survey of students and what they care about, especially as it relates to careers.
Well, I'd have to learn more to give a detailed answer about the survey as a whole as it was conducted, but just to kind of, I think, do an overview of that particular aspect again, is just that it's obviously it's very important to students that they are on a pathway to a successful career that they want for themselves. Like, that's obvious, but that was the number one thing that they said is that's what I want. And then the data was clear that they are not confident that they're on that path, nor prepared for it.
Yeah.
So that's the major red light here, is that they're feeling uncomfortable, like they don't know what they want to do or going to do, but they also feel unprepared for whatever that is.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a red alert to educators that, hey, here's an opportunity to really be helpful. So that's what we're trying to work towards.
Yeah. Mark, do you think that it's more about students not understanding what careers are available, or maybe not understanding what is involved in the career that they're after? I'm just curious what your gut is about. I'm so fascinated by that survey of students.
Yeah, I'll respond, and then I'd, Liz, Elizabeth, and Ashley, if you have another comment or thought, please jump in, because I don't think there's necessarily a right answer on this. I think it's a combination of things. I feel like, I mean, I picture myself back at that age. I didn't know what a lot of careers were. I have to imagine that's still consistent today. Where, like, even me looking at those 6 suggested careers, like, I don't know what that type of an engineer does. I don't know what all they make in Kentucky and how quickly that particular job is growing in Kentucky. I don't know that. So I'm guessing that a lot of 17 and 18-year-old, folks don't know that either. So I think it is partially an education piece on what's out there. And then I think it's a black box on, all these states have personal finance requirements, and I think that's great, but talking about the salary component, like I wouldn't know that. Is this a 2-year or 4-year associate's requirement? I wouldn't know that. So I think all of these things, there's that awareness piece. And then there's probably a whole secondary, almost its own topic as far as how do we help students get more information about themselves, I think. And I think that goes to those interest area skills and help them learn. I think we're all continuing to learn about ourselves as we do different strengths finders and whatever. And it's like, oh, I'm this kind of person. So I think helping them learn more about themselves might help them identify opportunities that they might be good fits for. So I think those are a couple thoughts. I don't know, Ashley or Elizabeth or anybody have any other?
No, I think you knocked it out of the park there, Mark. I was the same way as a kid, so it makes sense. And again, I want to be really, sensitive to the fact that the contract in Kentucky is for the SAT for 11th graders. So understand it's not past that. And so if PSAT does appear in districts, it is a district by district case. But to Mark's point, I think the earlier that kids have an opportunity to interact with tools like this, to start thinking about what they're interested in, to maybe take a course that's in a subject matter that might align with something they think is interesting, and either they can double down on it, or maybe they think like, oh, that's not for me. I would have loved something like that as a student, because I very much was checking the boxes. I knew I was going to go to college. My parents did the best they could, being from Southern Indiana and having limited options. But in a world where students are used to navigating apps and technology and gathering information from sources, I think something like this would have really served me as a student to be able to lean into it, and just get the wheels turning a bit more. So yes, it is for SAT, and yes, students can opt into it there, but just plugging that, the sooner that kids can have access to it, I think the better. And again, just to reiterate, we have so many resources around this, like between our Kentucky SAT website that will continue to be a fluid website, that things will be added to along the way, paired with the great work that Elizabeth's team have done on the higher ed side for the resources there. Hopefully we are capturing everything that's needed to either tag team or to link to the various sites, but we're excited about the work to come.
Yeah. I think so much has been said about preparing students for jobs that maybe don't exist while they're in school. And I think that's exponentially more true now than it was, when I was in K-12 education. And so even, as you said, Mark, so there might even be careers that show up that students are unfamiliar with. They don't even know what that career is. And maybe some of their teachers don't know either. So I think it's a really interesting time to be trying to prepare for careers that are, somewhat even unknown to us, and what the skill set might be needed. I'm really fascinated and excited about the connection to the emphasis, not just about the career, but also the skills that are involved in the careers. You all are probably familiar with Kentucky's Portrait of a Learner, which is really about the skills that students develop in K-12. It's kind of our definition for it in K-12. And then for higher ed, we have the Graduate Profile, which is really about the 10 essential skills that our employers have identified as being really key for all of our college graduates. And so I see strong connections between, your helper and thinker and creator and all of those kinds of things that are happening in Kentucky right now. So I don't know if you all have anything to say about that or not, but I did notice that as you were talking.
Hey, Robin, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to thank you for bringing that up. I got to hit the books and consider that alignment more when I'm not on the road. And that's a great connection for me to help schools and districts make on how does that intertwined with the skills that Kentucky has identified as important for their students as well. So thank you for that call out.
Yeah, I think a lot of our local districts have been thinking about just how locally they define all of those skills in the portrait of a learner. But then also, I know our post-secondary institutions have really been working hard on the graduate profile and making sure that students develop, like critical thinking and communication skills and all those kinds of things that our employers are saying, we really want to see more of this. You can call them soft skills or durable skills, whatever you want to call them, but they want to see more of that. All right. Well, I think we had one comment. Let's see here. Sandra. Oh, I see Liz has already answered her question there. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. I don't know if anybody has any last questions that you want to ask our team before we sign off today. But I did want to give Mark and Ashley and Elizabeth another opportunity to just remind folks in Kentucky about the professional development opportunities that you have generally around this transition to the SAT, specifically around any of the, additional supports that our K-12 and post-secondary institutions can be watching for or hoping for. And I did want to also say that we'll follow up with an email that has dates and times where you all can registration links, for webinars and those kinds of things. So Mark and Ashley and Elizabeth, do you all have final words?
Yeah, sure. I'll start since I'm talking a lot. If you go to that Kentucky SAT specific website, just so you know, all these dates will be listed there for you, but I'll just kind of give a high level. And then if you're like, hey, I need this date, please visit that website to find it. But we have 7 in-person workshops in November. We're on the tail end. We've got 2 more this week, and then our November roadshow is done. But if you wanted to register for Hazard or London, those are in there. Or I'm sorry, Hazard and Bowling Green. We're doing a webinar recording of the roadshow that we did in the 7 locations. That'll be available on demand on the website along with the deck that we used. We're doing monthly office hours with KDE. Those dates are listed on the website. We have 5 in-person events in February that you can't register for yet. But the locations and the dates are on the website. And then we have topic specific webinars. We did one on SSD, which is Services for Students with Disabilities. That one's in the books. That recording will be posted to the website probably next week. Then we're doing a tech one after that, a technology requirement, those types of things. And then there's a video webinar that the state superintendent recorded with us, kind of doing the announcement. And here's some information about the SAT, particular in Kentucky. That video is available on the Kentucky specific website that's in the chat here. Or if you were to just search for a Kentucky SAT website, you get there. And that's a learning curve. So Robin, to zoom out just quickly, but like the scores, it's a change, right? And so when you want to learn about, well, what do these scores mean? I'm used to seeing a number like a 22 or a 26, and now I see a 1300. What does that mean? So there are tools out there to help you put these scores in context and learn more what they mean. And you'll find some of that information on the Kentucky specific website, or you've got my contact information there. You've got the great Ashley Gibson's contact. Reach out and we're happy to help. Ashley or Elizabeth, do you have anything to add to any of that?
I was just going to plug real quick before Elizabeth dives in. If you do participate in any of these, a webinar, an in-person training, if you are involved in the administration in the spring, if we send you a survey, please respond to it. And please respond to it honestly, because we want to be good partners and we want to learn what is needed for the state of Kentucky and to support you all. So please give us the feedback. Our emails are always open as well, but let us know where you see gaps. Let us know where we can support. We don't know what we don't know. So we do welcome the candid feedback, positive, neutral, negative, because it will continue to evolve throughout the partnership. So that's just my plug there. I think we get a lot of surveys in a lot of different places, but we really lean into them. And so please give us the feedback.
And I will wrap up for those of you in higher ed, just a couple of things, partly repeat, is I put both in the Q&A and in the chat links to register for the higher ed webinar. And if you're thinking, oh, that sounds cool, I'll attend, but I wonder if so-and-so, down the hall or in another building, registrar's office, for instance, or financial aid or anyone else might need to know this information, please share the webinar link. We welcome anyone from higher ed to join. We have sent an initial invite to admissions people. We've worked really hard to find those links, but other than the folks who attended CACRO, for instance, we don't have a list of registrars or financial aid officers or student success. So please feel free to share the link for the webinar. Same goes for the landing page, because lots of folks, I had a conversation with someone in the registrar's office at EKU on Friday, and he's like, I use test scores, a college entrance exam, for placement into math and English courses. So if you're in a similar situation at your place, of course, please make sure they also have the website, have the webinar link. We are going to have a webinar. One of the early 2026 webinars will be on our research and our concordance with the actual folks who do that. Tom Proctor is the expert on concordance, and Emily Shaw with validity research. We'll be sharing there. Do know there was a meeting with folks in CPE with Melissa Bell and her team on exactly the digital SAT and the benchmarking for the higher ed side. So that doesn't mean we're one and done. If you individually have questions, of course, please ask. But no, we're also sort of been proactive in sharing that information. So I'll just leave it with, we're doing a lot of things. And I say that with Mark for the K-12 side and me and our team on higher ed. But let us, if you're like, that doesn't quite cover what I need, or I've got a second question, reach out. If it's K-12, reach out to Mark and Ashley. If it's higher ed, reach out to me, and we will answer or get you to the right person. So thanks. We are excited about this partnership, y'all, and we want to help you. And I didn't mention, I'm down the road. I'm in Nashville, so I'll be driving up to Frankfurt this afternoon. So.
All right. Well, thank you all for those final words. And I just wanted to leave with a couple of comments about our webinar today. First of all, I think for all of us in Kentucky, it's nice to have Mark and Ashley's faces and Elizabeth's name. We didn't get to see Elizabeth's face on the webinar today, but it's nice to be able to connect real people with the questions, that we have on the K-12 and the post-secondary side. So thank you all so much for being available and for sharing with our audience today, so that they can reach out to you with questions or suggestions about this whole transition. And then I also just wanted to wrap up by saying, this is all very new, and we'll continue to work with this team about how we can integrate the career supports into our Futurity website. I know that many of you use Futurity, and we're really proud of it, and it provides a lot of guidance for careers. And I think that these are all pieces that can be integrated into that as well, where it's easy for you to access it and find it. So we'll be working with Mark and Ashley and Elizabeth about how we can do that better to make these things really accessible to everyone. So thank you all for joining today. And don't forget, we have our webinar coming up in December that's about the FAFSA and financial aid. And so we look forward to seeing you. We'll have a combined one in December. It'll just be one because we're coming up on the holidays. But we just want to wish you all happy Thanksgiving, and thank you, Ashley and Mark and Elizabeth, for joining us today.